Hello, you. Well, not all of you, but that part of you. You know I swore myself never to touch you again after I almost went insane the last time, right? For the sake of this series, I could just skip you or forget about you, you know? Oh, don't look at me like that. I know you're trying to tempt me with those triangles. What? Yeah, you have a point. They're watching. So, let's dive into Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. I do have it after all, and it's not like I could just cut the disc off. And it's also quite vital to the evolution of the franchise, so let's play it. So, what do you do when you make a sequel to one of the most successful adventure titles yet? You change absolutely everything from it, of course. Yeah, that was pretty much the idea behind Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link when Miyamoto came up with it. He even chose an entirely different theme to work on it. And Nintendo eventually released it on January 14th, 1987. Strangely enough, it is also the only Zelda title not to have the Legend of part of the name, and it's one of the few to have an actual Legend of Zelda in the game. Let's see what it's about. Long ago, the King of Hyrule possessed a part of the Triforce, and, as a lot of humans do, he died. His son, controlled by an evil wizard, asked the first Princess Zelda— no, not her, another one. He asked her where it was, but she refused to answer. The evil wizard then cast a spell to put her into an eternal sleep. In his grief, the prince then sealed her in a temple until she awakened, and ordered his descendant to name all the princes in this household Zelda. Back to the present, Link is now 16 years old, and a Triforce mark appears on his hand. He goes to see Impa, current Zelda's servant, and she tells him about the legend. Link must then show his worth by inserting 6 crystals and 6 statues in 6 palaces to show that he is worthy of the Triforce of Courage, which lay hidden in the Great Palace in Death Valley, to unite with the rest of the Triforce and awaken Zelda the First. Meanwhile, Ganon's forces want to use Link's blood to spray them on Ganon's ashes to revive him. So long story short, Link must visit a bunch of dungeons to show that he is worthy of awakening Sleeping Beauty, while monsters are after his blood. Now I actually simplified it. In the original American instruction manual, the story is about 10 pages long. Alright, let's call him Link and whoa! Quite a difference, isn't it? Yep, this game is mostly a 2D side-scroller with lots of sword fights and some experience point tossed in for good measure. So you can upgrade not only your defense, but also your strength and your magic power, but more on that later. Let's talk about the other big thing that this game has that the previous Zelda did not. People! That's right, as you wander around in the JRPG-like overworld, you will come across various towns full of weirdos and old people. Like this pyromaniac, this little girl who basically tells you to kill yourself, and, hey man, we all have our bad days, you know, don't call yourself that. These towns also have no shop, but you can restore your hit points and magic points with this girl here. What? This is a family-friendly show, I'm not making that joke. It is also where you will do certain quests to get mostly magic spells, like the shield spell to dress you up like Mario and cut damage in half. It's actually right at the beginning, so try to get it as fast as possible. The fireball spell that is not that useful, and one that turns you into a fairy. Yeah, I know, that's not why you're here, isn't it? So, yeah, let's cut to the hard part. What hard part? The rest of the game. If you remember in my Kid Icarus review when I said that with its leveling system, that game started really hard and got really easy, well, Zelda 2 starts hard and actually gets much harder. I'll tell you right away, even though I've never finished all of the Zelda titles, I can safely say that this is one of the hardest in the franchise for its fighting mechanic. Which is not to say that it's a bad game actually, far from it. Take the best representative of the fighting system, the Iron Knuckle for example. They block your attack with their shield and you block theirs with yours. It's much harder than it sounds actually, and they are in the very first palace. As you get used to them, you get the harder red variety, and after that, the light blue one. Bosses do offer some challenge, well, most of them. But as I said, as you upgrade your life, or defense really, and your attack, you survive better and hit harder. When you gain a level, you can also keep this experience to upgrade something else later, but just remember that if you get a game over, you lose all of your unused EXP. You do get 3 lives to give you a better chance though. And unlike in Zelda 1, monsters do not drop hearts to heal you. The only way to heal yourself in a dungeon is the life spell, which costs all that, and the rare fairy that you might find. You can also get some bonus experience by finding these pea bags. Let's say... Yep. Peanuts. Okay, now this is it. This is Death Mountain, the place I have rage quit during my last playthrough. Let's dive in this labyrinth and get that hammer. Boy do these guys hurt, but keeping my distances I think I'm doing good. Oh man, what do I do now? Okay, almost there. Come on! Ah, yes! Oh well, the game will save my hammer anyway, so... One nice thing to note about Death Mountain, which is south of the map in this game, is that south of it you actually visit the Hyrule from Zelda 1, which also explains why it was almost deserted by then. Nice continuity. This brings me to the one thing that this game brings to the Zelda franchise. Well, possibly to most adventure titles for that matter. Structure. In Zelda 2, all palaces have a treasure like in Zelda 1, but here it's actually needed to get to the next part of the map. For example, with this hammer, Link can go to the east part of the continent to find the town of Meadow and the 3rd dungeon. Also look for the awesome downward stab here, it's a godsend. But it's a seaside town, so why do you have to go to a dungeon to find a raft? Why can't you find a better boat in town to cross the sea for that matter? Now, that structure doesn't mean that the questing part of the game is easy. Take this guy who controls a bridge to go on Death Mountain for example. He won't help you because you're a stranger. But from what I know, nothing tells you about this random guy on a random tile in the woods who gives you a letter to let you pass. Or much later in the game, you're searching for the hidden village of Kasuto and you suddenly have to press the A button to search for it. Also, as we'll see a lot along the way, who says experience points in 8-bit generation says a lot, and I mean a lot, of grinding if you want to survive the last few palaces. You will also want to explore a bit for hearts and magic containers. A lot of people do complain about the hard fights, and although challenging, I did enjoy it. And that does give us a pretty enjoyable game. You know, when all of these happen, it is instant death of course, so when you get a game over, you lose all of your EXP as I said. But you also restart at the Northern Palace, meaning you have to backtrack all the way back to this dungeon, with a few roadblocks along the way, which might include a few caves or this passage in which you get stoned to death. Every single time. And you will die a lot. Now one might say, well, it's because of NES limitations. No, because most of all the first Zelda does respawn you at the start of the dungeon, but so does the Great Palace, the final dungeon in this game. And thank God for that, because Death Valley is hell on earth. So yeah, there are a few things to help you make things easier though. You can use a jump slash on these iron knuckles, but try not to rely on this too much for later monsters. Tip number 2. In the first dungeons, you can spend some time slaying those respawning bubbles for some easy, if tedious, EXP. Also, when you put a crystal in a statue when finishing a dungeon, you get a free level, so try to gain a level just before then, for less grinding. As you wander through the final test, the Great Palace, Link must battle his own dark side. Do so while trying to stay sane, or with this method, and Link gets the Triforce. I think it's clear, but Zelda 2 is hard. There is a lot of fun to be had with this game with a good mindset though. If you hold out your hand for some help from this game, it will just bite it off, chew on it a little, and spit it back at your face. What you witnessed in that intro was pretty much my state of mind before I played it. But looking back at it, this game shows the fine balance needed for a fun but fair challenge when you oppose it to just plain frustrating stuff like Super Mario Bros. The Lost Level. Actually, I'd like to see a Zelda game of this type again. Maybe rebalance it a little and we might have a true gem there. Zelda 2 did give a third Triforce, towns, magic, and structure to the series. And for that, it does deserve to have its place in the series. It is available on Virtual Console, on Game Boy Advance, and on this GameCube collection you saw earlier. Speaking of Black Sheep, I'd like to know what was your favorite Black Sheep in a franchise. You know, the game that didn't quite fit with the rest of its series but still managed to be great on its own. Answer in the comments below after clicking that like button, which is not only gluten free but will also make it so that more people will watch my show. I'll see you guys in the next episodes in which we'll see what adventures await the descendants of Pat the Dragon Slayer. I'll see you then.